I wanted to interview you because the National Archives was looking for interviews with World War II vets. So state your full name for the archives.
Norman Dean Chris.
And where were you born?
Casper, Wyoming. And
Were you born in a hospital?
no, yes, at the Natrona County Hospital.
You were born in what year?
1926,
And that makes you 87 in November.
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about our Nebraska roots? How?
My father and mother are apparently born in Nebraska, and I lived in Nebraska myself from I was 4 years old till I was somewhere around 8 or 9 years old probably, yeah. Basically out in the sand hills on a farm, and during the Depression. And didn't know it was poor, had a lot of beans.
So it was in Broken Bow was where your father was born, right?
Broken Bow, yes. After World War I, he had graduated from the 8th grade. Him and my uncles were working on farms, and my father did have a draft, and World War I ended the day that he was supposed to get on the train, so he decided to see the world and got as far as Wyoming. He went to work for Standard Oil Company.
Your parents were neighbors in Nebraska.
Yes, they were.
I have the 1910 census from there showing your dad and your mother on the same page of the census. So
Yeah.
they were definitely neighbors, one right after the other.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that until I was looking at that census. And I had looked for your dad's name, and I found his name, and just below it was your mom's family. I found that interesting.
My dad always bragged that he made 8th grade, and he was big enough to whip the teacher, so he got out of school. Depression hit. My grandfather from Broken Bow says, go to the sand hills, you can always make a living. Unfortunately, we didn't anticipate the grasshoppers, the hail, and the drought.
Right, the
And
big dust storms.
and the dust. And this lasted, and we lost the lease on the farm we had because we couldn't make enough money to pay the lease money. So we went over to my uncle's and plowed up a pasture for sod and built a sod house. And 8 children in that school. We had one fine ball team. I was a pitcher because my name was Dean, and Dizzy and Daffy Dean was the highlight of our life. They were playing ball with the Orioles, the East Coast. So Dean become the pitcher.
How far did you get in school in Nebraska?
Through the 6th grade. Through the 6th grade. I went into 7th in Wyoming.
So you moved back up to Casper. Did your dad have a job opportunity up there?
No, he didn't. We had a big auction at our place, and we loaded all of our belongings on a hay wagon that he had put tires and wheels on behind an old Pontiac, and we went, looked like the grapes of wrath going up up to Casper area. And he pulled that whole wagon as far as Riverton, Wyoming, and couldn't find anything there. So back to Casper, we came and rented a place for 6 months or so, and then we moved into labor shack at a Pacti asbestos plant between Casper and Evansville, Wyoming. And
Your high school?
well, I was fortunate enough in school to have two teachers who were World War I veterans. And one of them was a history teacher. They were part of the famous Rainbow Division in World War I. In fact, I took solid classes within high school, and I had ample credits to graduate, so I just graduated. Actually, I had enough credits to get out at Christmas time. I had worked when I was 15 on a pipeline out of Casper, which was the White Ditching Machine Company, as a laborer, stripping pipe in a ditch. The pipe had been there since 1920s or so, and they wanted to salvage the pipe in order to rehab it and use it elsewhere. So White Ditch Machine Company contracted and got people like me who had got their Social Security card, and I loved it. Not particularly the pick and shovel; they got awful heavy, but I loved the equipment, and I watched it very closely. And when I got out of high school, I had been working at the garage as an apprentice mechanic, and Mr. White, White Ditching Company come in and had his truck serviced, and I asked him for a job back, and he said, by all means. So I went home and packed my suitcase and went through pipelining. My first job was a side boom tractor, and I knew how to operate it because I watched the guy the year before pull all the levers and all the whistles, and I had a patent. So I became a side boom tractor operator. I also oiled on ditch machines, and within, before I was 17, I could also operate just about any ditch machine he had on the different projects. I worked in various jobs throughout the state of Wyoming and down into Colorado and back into Wyoming and down in Nebraska. And one of my jobs was testing a natural gas line from Riverton, Wyoming to Okinawa, Nebraska. And there was two of us, and one of them rested while I drove the truck, while the other one carried a kerosene torch on her back. And we walked down these buried gas lines, and if it blew up, we run like hell. That was the only way. And we go to the nearest phone and call the local fire department and say that this guy's pasture's on fire. Had to let them handle the gas company and get gas turned off so they put out the fire. So, and I was close to being 17 years old, but my folks would not sign the papers for me to go into service. I qualified on the test as a aviation cadet in one of the V programs. I went to take my physical and I found out I needed glasses, and pilots could not wear glasses. So I went back to the recruiter and said, I'm going to become ride a torpedo plane. Enlisted. And again, I couldn't get on in the Navy because of my glasses. I then figured, well, now I heard of the Seabees, so I went to the SeaBee recruiter, and he says, yes, we need you, but our quota is filled for this quarter, and there's nothing I can do for you. But he said, your rate is third class because you have all this experience as an operator. And I said, well, I really don't know what a third class is, but yeah, I'm going to go to Seabees. At that time, everybody who had their birthday on a particular day that the draft board said to report in, they lined you up and says, your Navy, your Army, your Air Force, or Army Air Force, and your Coast Guard, and your whatever. And I wanted the choice. I didn't want to walk with the Army. I was kind of lazy at that point. Or maybe I was smart. Record that I had requested a Seabees, and I spent 5 weeks in the recruit training. And instead of my 9 as I was supposed to have, and I got word to pack my sea bag and roll it up in my hammock that I was going to Rhode Island, the Seabees. So
you were in San Diego at that time?
I was in San Diego. A training battalion, as they called it at that time, composed of veterans from Omaha Beach and the different beaches in Europe. And as younger people who come in for training or to be trained to go up on the Rhine River and do all the crossing of pontoons. And I immediately had a set of orders to get on LST and ride to the East Coast. And before I got on the LST, this was canceled and I was put on a troop train. And I went back through all the snow country and out to California. I was assigned to the 37th SeaBee Battalion, Naval SeaBee Battalion. And my first job was a mess cook. And worked in the galley a while, and then I went to compartment cleaning. And I kept after everybody. I said, well, I'm a seaman recruit. Now, when am I going to make seaman second? And they said, well, can't make seaman second, you never finish recruit training. So went on that way for several months. We went back to, before I had a meeting with the commanding officer before we boarded the ship, and I says, well, Captain, I says, I'm a seaman recruit, and you can't send seaman recruits overseas. I says, I would just either like to transfer out of your battalion, I'm ready to go to Point Barrow, Alaska, and work on the pipelines, because I worked in oil fields and gas fields. And he says, well, Chris, he says, I'll guarantee you the day you step on that ship, he says, you'll be a seaman second. And he was good to his word. I become a seaman second. Embarked the 37th Battalion, and we didn't know where we was headed for, but we knew it was Pacific someplace. We wanted to stop in Hawaii, but it was the Coast Guard manned ship, and they had to meet up with a convoy somewhere off of Hawaii, which they did, and we convoyed down to the next stop was Bikini, and it was hot and humid down there. They allowed us 2 beers on Bikini. What was interesting to me that all the hush-hush, loading a ship at night and traveling, I don't know, 5,000 miles down to Bikini, whatever it was, that Tokyo Rose knew we was there.
Is that right?
And we had a couple of scares of submarine attacks, and the tin cans, they drove the subs away and did their depth charging and all that, which is interesting.
Remember the ship you were on?
No, I don't. It was manned by Coast Guard, and they came from Ethiopia area.
Ethiopia.
Yeah, they supported the invasion with the British, American British, and run aground somewhere over there and banged up the ship pretty bad. I know because I had to work with about 20 other dudes on that ship, the Seabees, young guys, sorting tin cans out of the holes that got flooded. We didn't know whether they were beans or fruit cocktails or what they were.
So all the labels had come off.
All the labels soaked away, and bailing out the ship, these holes that were ruptured. But, eventually, we landed at Mogmog Fleet Recreation Island, right off of Trunk. They led us ashore and issued us another 2 beers, which was, you opened one of the beers had been sitting out on the sand and a pallet, and it all blew out. So you didn't have nothing but foam. All battalions were 1,300. About 300 of the support personnel, such as cooks, bakers, master-at-arms, security guards, and so on and so forth.
And your job on the ship was just to ride along,
Yeah, right.
bail.
Bail water, bull, better chip and paint. The Coast Guard didn't feed very well. They fed, for breakfast, you had a huge label of oatmeal. It was usually cold. There was no milk. There was no sugar. Once in a while, you got a little butter you put on it. But evening meal wasn't bad. But yeah, you had 2 meals a day. It was fun to get off the ship and get 4 or 5 hours ashore in solid ground. We loaded back up, and just as we left Bikini, the word is for all carpenter mates to report to the woodworking shop on the ship. And since we had a company full of carpenters and carpenter mates, they went to work building coffins. We didn't know it at that time, but we had one hole full of plywood, and they built hundreds of coffins, and we thought we was going to have to. If we got that far, we might end up going into Japan. But one day we pulled into this huge harbor, and they said we're at Okinawa. And it says, we want the security people to go ashore. And I didn't know I was assigned to security people. So grabbed a rifle and a backpack and jumped in the landing craft, went down over the side with ropes and slings and anything else we could get. Japanese were still committing hara-kiri on our ships out in the bays, and went ashore, and they had a fleet of trucks there. They loaded, perhaps 100 of us in trucks and hauled us off and dumped us off in some rice paddies. And the warrant officer in charge, known as Flash Gordon, he says, well, now we got to patrol our area, our camp area, and make sure it's secure. There's no Japanese in this area. And I was selected, volunteered to go out and stumble around in the jungle as such. Me and another guy teamed up, and we went out on the perimeter, and the first thing that happened was gunshots behind us. As it turned out, the warrant officer had shot a horse. We tripped over a trip line, and we had both had sense enough to fall flat on our faces, and this large caliber machine gun put a blast or two over our heads. and this old guy gets up, and he's old sergeant. Must have been a Marine since the beginning of time, but he says, who the hell's out there? If you're alive, speak up. What's the password for tonight? We'd never been told any password. No, you just got a couple of scared Seabees out here. Oh, you damn Seabees. Well, come on in. He said, I'm going to shoot you too hard. And we went in. He did have some coffee, and we had a cup of coffee with him, and he turned us around and headed back to the camp. He said, you damn fools, you got no business out here. He said, this is Marine territory. Since we had no equipment, the captain issued orders to all the equipment operators and builders and what have you, to carpenter's mates to go out and see what you could get from other battalions and from the Army, especially Army, he said. And we had a perimeter set up around the base, and I was one of the gate guards. He said, if you see a truck coming in, blinking his light or honking his horn, open the gate and let him in. Don't let nobody chasing him come in. And this is what we did. And within a week, we had cranes and shovels and bulldozers and all kinds of transportation. We went out and stole them because they didn't have keys in those days. All they had was a lever switch on the dashboard. They started building roads, and they was working on a pier at White Beach 1, one of the landing beaches, and dredging the bay out so we could bring small craft in. And over the years, I've been in and out of Okinawa, and that, I think probably the 5th time maybe that we rebuilt that pier, because typhoons always get it. But I got into a little trouble with the old man in the battalion because I went out and helped the Marines clear caves. Japanese never give up after VJ Day, but Seabees that didn't have to work went down and helped them out with suicide caves and to clear the caves. I got caught being off base, and I also got wounded by a hand grenade, and I don't know whether it was a hand grenade or my canteen exploded. But I did get metal up and down the side of my leg. And the Marines hauled me back to the base and says, we don't want you anymore. And so the executive officer assigned me to 30 days extra duty, 30 days restriction, or I'd get a Purple Heart and general court-martial. So I took the 30 days restriction and extra duty. VJ Day happened about that time. We were completely caught unawares as such, because we got to word sometime in the evening. And first of all the ships at sea out in the bay, and there's hundreds of ships, were firing their guns. And they were firing machine guns, firing, and we thought, oh man, this is a gas attack. And everybody thought gas attack, because a tracer bullet going through gas will turn a different color. And everybody was, say, scared. And finally the word became that Japanese had surrendered. We already knew that the bomb had been dropped both places in Japan, because there was a bulletin to come out that would drop the bomb from us. Still had snipers around, and we would, we'd fire back at the snipers where we thought they was, and they'd fire back at us where they thought we were. I don't think anybody's ever hit, because everything happened at night, and they'd called obscenities about the president's wife, and we'd call obscenities back about Tojo. And there was some good-speaking Japanese out there. They were in caves, miles and miles of caves. In fact, in their own camp, within 150 foot of the medics. Marines come over the hill one night following this young Japanese lady, and walked by their medic tent and grabbed her and pulled up a clump of brush and had a spider hole down there, and this big old Japanese was captured. He'd been living in that hole for I don't know how long, and I suspect stealing the food from us. But yeah, right in the middle of our camp. And I stayed there until June 1946. I did my time, and lo and behold, I conned them into making me a seaman, first class. And one of my, the people started going home. We went home by points. People who were in the service in 1942 got to go home first.